So I will start. 1, 2, 3. So everyone smile. And next. 1, 2, 3. Everyone smile. Okay, thank you so much. I hope this afternoon you can feel happy, and then you can stay till the end of the session, because I believe this is one of the special for the Ngelamun Sore-Sore, because we are having 𝗍𝗂𝘗 join us, and the session will be full in English till the end. So let's just kick off this session. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ibu Siti Mariam Yaakob, PhD, as the Senior Director of the 𝗍𝗂𝘗, to share a few words and officially open this Ngelamun Sore-Sore session. To Ibu Siti, the time is yours.
Thank you, Yani. Hello, everybody. Selamat siang semua. My name is Dr. Siti Mariam. I am the Senior Director at the International Blue Carbon Institute. And we wanted to thank our colleagues from 𝗪𝗂𝘂 Indonesia and all of the partners that are involved in this Ngelamun Sore-Sore for inviting us here today to share a little bit about what we're doing. I and 𝗏 have been catching some snippets from the previous webinars, and it's very exciting that we're able to bring together this community of seagrass researchers in Indonesia to come and talk about seagrass, which I think is one of the pillars that 𝗍𝗂𝘗 is working in. So building these networks of scientists to be able to share knowledge and information. And this webinar such as this one is essential for building sort of that dialogue and the trust and the ability to share resources as well as knowledge. So the International Blue Carbon Institute works across all blue carbon ecosystems. I did not download the Ngelamun Sore-Sore background, but you can see that this is a salt marsh behind me. So we work across mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marsh ecosystems, which are all actionable blue carbon ecosystems. And we work across science, policy, as well as finance in order to be able to protect, restore, and conserve as many blue carbon ecosystems as possible. For seagrasses, this is a topic that's very close to my heart, because those of you who know me know that I am a seagrass ecologist by training. And so seagrasses will always remain a dear topic to me. In terms of what the 𝗍𝗂𝘗 is doing, 𝗏 can put it in context, but some of the things we're doing include assessing carbon stocks across seagrass. So we've just, I think the paper is coming out this week, we've just published a synthesis of global blue carbon stocks. I think 𝗏 will be talking a little bit about that later, perhaps. So keep an eye out for that one. That it really changes the perspective of how much carbon is stored within seagrass ecosystems, and it's really starting to show a pattern that it's not equal across all seagrass meadows, which I think is something we all already know. But having it in a paper form really helps us communicate this to policymakers and also people who want to invest and finance in blue carbon and especially seagrass meadows going into the future. So I will not take up that much more of your time. I will hand it back to Yani. But suffice it to say, thank you very much again for having us here, and we hope to be working with some of you, in the future. So, Yani, back to you.
Thank you so much, Ibu Siti. I think you can already highlight that the main important for the seagrass is collaboration, and 𝗍𝗂𝘗 is one of the working together with 𝗍𝗂𝘗 with Indonesian counterpart will also one of the best things, and I think 𝗏 will also expand that further. So once again, thank you, Ibu Siti. I hope you can stay until the end of this session. And so everyone, let's jump to our main presenter. We are having Tim Chanuk Buapet in here. So 𝗏 is currently the Science and Technical Director at 𝗍𝗂𝘗. And before joining 𝗍𝗂𝘗, she was a lecturer at the Prince of Songkhla University in Thailand. And she completed her PhD at Stockholm University in Sweden. She's also a seagrass ecologist, just like Ibu Siti. So today 𝗏 will present about the 𝗍𝗂𝘗's global work in seagrass blue carbon and how it aligns with Indonesian conservation goal. So, Nok, without further ado, the screen is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for joining us today for this seminar, and I hope you are curious about the International Blue Carbon Institute and our work in science space, as this will be the focus of my talk today. I will take you on a journey to explore our global initiatives, highlighting projects that are relevant to this region and, of course, to Indonesia. Next slide, please. Yeah, so let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Phim Chanok, or Nok for short. I am the Science and Technical Director at 𝗍𝗖𝗍. We are actually part of Conservation International. I joined 𝗍𝗖𝗍 6 months ago, so all the projects I am sharing with you today have been actually initiated even before I joined. So this is actually a brand new experience for me, presenting the studies that are not conducted by myself. But I will try my best to convey the right message to all of you. I am also a seagrass biologist and ecophysiologist, in fact, and I have a QR to my Google Scholar profile in case you are interested in some of my work, and we can discuss this further, but today we'll focus on 𝗍𝗖𝗍 work. So like Yani already mentioned, I spent a decade as a lecturer and researcher at the university in Thailand before joining CI. So research has been like a big part of my life, and I am very excited to connect with my fellow seagrass researchers here today. Next slide, please. So International Blue Carbon Institute, like CT mentioned, we are based in Singapore, but we do have a global reach. However, I think our immediate focus at the moment is on Asia Pacific region. And at 𝗍𝗖𝗍, our work has 3 key pillars. There is research and science innovation. This is where I sit. But we also focus on building multidisciplinary capacity for blue carbon and facilitating knowledge exchange and learning. We, in fact, see ourselves more of an enabler of blue carbon action, if you have to put it in one sentence. Next slide, please. So across our work portfolios, we have 6 thematic programs, and they span all kinds of geographies and partners. But today we will focus on my favorite and CT's favorite thematic program, I guess, the Seagrass Blue Carbon. Next slide, please. So our current objectives, actually, more of maybe a secret goal is to sort of elevate seagrass to the same level of implementation as mangrove. But we are doing this while also recognizing the uniqueness of seagrass ecosystems. So for this, I think everyone here can probably agree, and we also identify this as well in the workshop we organized. We collaborated with 𝗂𝗍𝗄 last week, that we really need to understand some key variables really well. Like, for example, carbon stocks, and we also need some sort of common and comparable methods, both for mapping and both for assessing, monitoring seagrass ecosystem globally. And at the end of the day, like collaborating with 𝗂𝗍𝗄, we work on translate these scientific outcomes as well into policy and decision making. Next slide, please. So for today's talk, I will share our works within the seagrass program that aim to address these key challenges. So the first one is fundamental knowledge gaps, and that includes the seagrass carbon stock, the seagrass extent, emission factors, and also sequestration rates. And the limited data representation and sharing. And at the end, we will also discuss a bit on the limited coordination among the research communities. Next slide, please. So I guess among these, next slide, please. Okay, So among this audience, I'm certain I don't need to convince you of the importance of understanding seagrass extent. So currently, we are collaborating with NASA to develop a remote approach for large-scale seagrass mapping. So here, it utilizes remote sensing coupled with predictive modeling using bathymetry to map the seagrass. So this NASA project itself spans various geographies worldwide, but for IBCI, our immediate priority is the Asia-Pacific region. So we have pilot sites in Cambodia and Indonesia. Next slide, please. So this is a map of Bintan Island. I guess everyone can recognize this. And here is a first look at our map seagrass area, which of course still need validation. So I chose to share this project because I am aware that BRIN is currently leading the national seagrass mapping for Indonesia. And we have absolutely no intention of duplicating efforts, but perhaps these can be a starting point, for a conversation about how we can actually support each other in the future on a very similar efforts. Next slide, please. So in case you are interested, there are some training materials available on YouTube for you to check out. Siti is actually the instructor for the part 1 of this series. Next slide, please. So in addition to mapping seagrass extent, right, fundamental knowledge gaps, including limited data on carbon stock, sequestration, and emission rates, as all of us here are already aware that seagrass actually have large uncertainty in soil organic carbon, sequestration, and emission rates. So these uncertainties, in fact, sort of hinder integration of seagrass into policy and financial frameworks, resulting in sufficient conservation and restoration activities targeting seagrass ecosystems. So to address these challenges, we are currently working with International Blue Carbon Scientific Working Group under the Blue Carbon Initiative. And from Indonesia, Pak Novi and Professor Daniel Moriaso are members of this working group. Next slide, please. And these are the papers that will come out likely this year. So I will discuss the first one that Siti already mentioned, addressing global seagrass carbon, which has already been accepted and will be published in Nature Communication next week. And I will give you an update about the other two some other time. Next slide, please. So let us actually take another look at these iconic papers. I think our most cited references on climate mitigation potential of seagrass are likely these two papers from 2011 and 2012, and that is like more than 10 years ago. Since then, there has been significant progress in scientific methods for determining carbon burial rates, for example, and an increasing number of data sets from various countries, especially in our region, where blue carbon research has gained significant momentum over the last 5 to 10 years. And for us, it is indeed the time to update our understanding and integrate these advancements. Next, please. So, greater knowledge of the variation and drivers of seagrass carbon stock is essential to guide the development, integrity, and reliability of climate change policy and financing to support seagrass conservation and restoration, right? At the end of the day, that's what we want. And in this work, we provide estimates of carbon stocks associated with seagrass ecosystems through analysis of comprehensive global database, and that is more than 3,000 seagrass soil samples spanning 61 countries. So we found that the new median of the global carbon stock is significantly lower than previous estimates, partly because here, well, we integrated much more data, and largely these data are from tropical seagrass meadows which includes smaller seagrass species with less intricate below-ground structures to hold carbon stock, and perhaps also with more carbonate sediment. So the database is also organized by records per country, genus, the seagrass genus, the functional group of seagrass, ecoregion, and coastal typology. So it is going to be extremely valuable in terms of practical applications, such as national greenhouse gas inventories, whether it is to refine the IPCC Tier 1 soil carbon stock currently used for carbon accounting in places without local data. Or for a country like Indonesia, it might be a good foundation for your Tier 2 reporting. So I will share the paper with all of you as soon as it's published, which is like in 5 days, I think. Or you can use this link to access the paper next week. Next slide, please. So we talk a lot about a lack of data, but when there is data, it doesn't always mean it will be represented and accessible. So the carbon stock paper is actually a good example of when you improve data representation, it actually improves your global estimate. It improves your analysis. But to benefit the whole scientific communities and practitioners and NGOs, right? The data has to be available and accessible. For example, when I was working in Thailand, I was stuck behind a paywall so very often. And for the works that rely on the availability of data, like for example, last week, we had a workshop with 𝗂𝗍 and 𝗂𝗂𝘂 on evaluating the carbon benefit of the seagrass ecosystems, for example. This kind of work actually rely on the availability of existing data. And for this line of work, it can be really critical when the data is not there for you to access. So with this in mind, we currently collaborating with the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center to sort of democratize blue carbon data through the Coastal Carbon Network. Next slide, please. So the Coastal Carbon Network manages carbon data from tidal wetlands around the world. So it helps researchers publish their data and keep an open source archive called the Coastal Carbon Data Library and Atlas. So right now, this library has over 16,000 soil profiles from 70 countries, covering 64 years. It includes data from salt marshes, mangroves, seagrasses, and also from tidal freshwater wetlands. But next slide, please. However, if we zoom in, you will see that at present, there is limited data available from the Southeast Asian region. For example, I'm from Thailand, right? So I am aware of the research activities related to blue carbon there, but I definitely do not see them being represented here. Next slide, please. So currently, we are in the process of recruiting research scientists who will be responsible for collating data from this region. Additionally, this person will lead the capacity training on data management. So when data is lacking due to insufficient skills in blue carbon methods, for example, this person will also provide training on field and laboratory methods. So Indonesia is one of our focus countries, and we look forward to working with you on this, both in data sharing and in capacity building. So please reach out to me, CT, or the KI team if you want to be involved in this project, or if you need capacity training. Next slide, please. So I would like to actually share a bit like the benefits of submitting your data to the Coastal Carbon Network. So your data will actually be included in future analysis. So this will lead to more citations, collaborations, and publicity. It will be advertised through Coastal Carbon Atlas, making it accessible for various projects and assessment. And the CCN is actually a part of the Smithsonian, which has a long history of archiving digital content. So your data will receive a DOI. So you have your own DOI, just like your own publication. And these can be embargoed, it can be versioned, and it can be stored in the Smithsonian digital repositories, which is very safe. And you also have control over when and how and whether actually your data is released. So you can establish an embargo to ensure that the data isn't made public until you are ready, in case you are still in your publication process, for example. Next slide, please. So beside the benefits mentioned, submitting your data to the CCN can significantly improve the global estimates. And also, most importantly, you can also leverage the platform's data analytics features to support the policy needs. For example, a comprehensive database can help a country decide, again, on the tier of its greenhouse gas inventory, determining whether it has sufficient data points to move to tier 2, or perhaps for now, we should stick with tier 1, for example. Next slide, please. Okay, now we come to the final project that I would like to share. Next slide, please. Maybe one more click. Okay. Hi, everyone. Back to slide, please. A bit before, one more, like backward. Yes, here it is. So the final project I would like to share is actually our goal to enhance coordination within the Southeast Asian region by establishing the Southeast Asian Blue Carbon Network. Next slide, please. So, since you are all here, I am certain you agree that networks matter. So not only that they foster collaboration, but also facilitate knowledge sharing and policy influence. And we really would love to see this region thrive through these efforts. Next slide, please. So, thanks to all of you and to KI, we now have the Indonesian Seagrass Scientist Network. So you might not realize it yet, but you are officially our core group. So your activities, your progress, and your lessons learned will really help us set a model for expanding this initiative across Southeast Asia. Next slide, please. And to wrap things up, here's a sneak peek. So we are collaborating with BRIN and KI to organize an Indonesian Seagrass conference. And this will likely be around October or November this year. So stay tuned for more information. And that would be my next slide to say terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nok, for this awesome presentation, and also to give us overview about what's actually the gap that currently right now that we need to address, and how the important that collaboration, and also you mentioned about the IDCA initiative that could also help Indonesia to address this gap. And yeah, before we dive into more the discussion, so I wanna open for everyone who wanna have a question to knock, just raise your hand and open your mic. Or if you want to, you can also type the question on the chat box so we can read it for now. So I see there are 2 questions now on the chat box, but maybe let's give anyone in the platform first if you want to raise your hand and speak. So we'll have 3 first round of this Q&A with the 3 questions. If anyone, just raise your hand. So I see Pak Novi. Yes, Pak Novi, feel free, Pak.
Thank you, Mbak Yani. Hello, Nok. Hello, Siti. Nice meeting you again. Thank you for the wonderful presentations. I don't have any questions, but just to clarify, since you mentioned about the mapping aspect, the national mapping aspect of Indonesia. Yeah, Indonesia has a unique national policy to standardize its national thematic maps. And one of them is, for example, the national thematic map of seagrass and coral reefs. And this national policy is called One Map Policy. Basically, is to standardize the product and also the map makers of the various national maps. Yeah, because in the past, many institutions, many agencies produce their own maps. Yeah, and then when it comes to which map that we should refer to, then it becomes confusing. That's why Indonesian government established this one map policy in the past. And also, as a part of implementation of this one map policy, is something that we call as the national 𝗪𝗪𝗪 data custodian. Yeah, so our national geoinformatic information agency, BIG, appointed several governmental agency to be the national geospatial data custodian for several thematic maps. For example, the national geospatial data custodian for mangrove map is the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. It is now split into 2 ministries. And the national geospatial data custodian for seagrass and coral reef maps is the Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, a place where I'm working with. And yeah, now the lead, yeah, if we talk about the lead for producing those thematic maps are those institutions appointed as the national geospatial data custodians. Yeah, and for seagrass, more specifically for seagrass, it is now being updated. The former national custodian was Indonesian Institute of Science, now BRIN, in the past. But since LIPI was integrated into BRIN, now the custodian for seagrass and coral reefs is Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. Yeah, it was transferred. And now we are working to update these national maps. It is being implemented and finalized through collaborations funded by pakar foundations, and it is led by Gadjah Mada universities. And the collaborating agency are KKP, the new National Geospatial Data Custodian, and then Gadjah Mada University, and then BRIN, and then BIG, Indonesian Geospatial Agency, and Hasanuddin University. So 5 collaborating agency working on updating Indonesian national seagrass and coral reef maps. It is now being updated, and we have been working for like almost 3 years, and the project will accomplish in this September, and at the time we will launch our national maps. Yeah, and then also, yeah, you mentioned about the NOAA mapping project, and we were also sharing our works with NOAA. I think the PI is 𝗪𝗏𝗀, yeah, and yeah, we are interacting each other, yeah, we are learning each other. That will be all, just an update and information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Pak Novi.
you.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the people need to update what's currently happened in Indonesia, especially for the mapping. And I think everyone can wait for having the Seagrass map launching on September. And maybe after that, we can see if there is some collaboration can also happen between 𝗪𝗏𝗍 and then how to leverage more for the Seagrass map in Indonesia. Yeah, I actually see two people raising their hand. Maybe Bu Siti, you
Sorry.
want to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Pak
Yeah.
Novi. So I think, Pak Novi, you're absolutely right. You know, and it's great that Indonesia has all these national focal points for, you know, the approach that you're taking to seagrass mapping. I think our intention here was not to duplicate efforts or, you know, replace what is being done. I think what we're trying to show here is that there is an approach that we happen to test out, not just in Bintan, actually. We also tried it out in Cambodia. So, you know, it was just a study site, but that this approach would really help speed up, you know, some of the gaps, I think, that are existing in the national mapping efforts. Because from the conversations we've had, you know, we've made, like, you know, there's been a fantastic start to mapping seagrass in Indonesia towards this national map. And I think our intention here is to, you know, also come up with tools that countries can use, not just Indonesia, but also across this region, that countries can use in order to be able to predictively detect where seagrasses are. And with that predictive approach, the effort needed to maybe verify or, you know, do some ground truthing can be reduced as the model is improved with several or continued iterations of application. So that is the intention. It's not to suggest that everybody uses this approach, right? It's more to say, okay, so we have a national map, and I mean, I don't believe that, you know, we've mapped all of the seagrasses in Indonesia, all the way from, you know, Java to the other end, to West Nusa Tenggara or even Papua. So, you know, this is kind of like inviting a conversation to say, how can we do this collaboratively? What are the tools that are currently available? And that is where the 𝗪𝗏𝗍 is hoping to connect the network of scientists who will be able to use some of these approaches to maybe map the seagrasses in their region, right? So the idea is everybody does a little bit, and then you're contributing, obviously, to this national mandate to map seagrasses in Indonesia. So that's the intention. It's not to, you know, like say that, yeah, I completely agree that we need a standardized approach for the national setting so that all of the maps that you're creating are comparable. But at the same time, I think, you know, we could also stand to test out some of these tools that will make these efforts faster. And that's where, you know, the ongoing conversations we're having with 𝗂𝗂𝗧, but also with BRIN, are going to be very, very helpful, I think, to this effort. And, you know, I think that's one of the things that we would like to put up as a topic for discussion during this Seagrass conference in October, especially if it's going to come, you know, on the heels of your announcement of this national map, right? Because then it's really setting the scene and showing us like, okay, so we have this map, this is where we currently are, what else do we need to do? You know, where are the gaps, and what do we need to do as a collective science community in order to be able to plug in those gaps.
Thank you, Bu Siti. Thank you.
Yes,
That's great.
thanks, Pak Novi.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Siti. I think it's more into like we want to complete one each other. So let's put that in the line, right? We want to complete one each other. So we are not creating the same thing, but we completing one each other. Okay, so I think I also see one person raising his hand. It's 𝗟𝗍𝗣𝗍𝗳𝗏. Uh, feel free to open your mic. Yeah.
Yeah. Is my voice clear? All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Ibu Siti, and thank you, Mrs. Snow, for all the presentations. My name is 𝗟𝗍𝗣𝗍𝗪. I'm currently in my master's degree in James Cook University, Australia, and I believe Ibu Siti also graduated from this one. So yeah. I actually have two questions. So the first one, probably about the interest of the renewing the standards of the seagrass blue carbon, because honestly, I'm quite like getting used to with the citation from 2012, the seagrass as significant blue carbon stock. So from the newest research that you will publish, the first question is that will we still use the standard of a sediment blue carbon, like 1 meter of depth, or maybe we can map more than 1 meter of depth? That's my first question. And the second question will be, what's the future directives for international blue carbon initiatives? Because as we can see, when we are calculating seagrass blue carbon, especially in LOI method, loss on ignition, we still use the global standard from the blue carbon initiative, which I think there is a gap in that those are derived mostly from Mediterranean seagrass. So will there be any improvement for those loss on ignition method? And if so, with the potential of the double counting, how can we anticipate like all of the previous data when it turns out to be overestimated? Like, should we like double recount or something like that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all your three questions. I will actually start with the LOI question. Currently, we are updating the blue carbon fuel manual. Actually, I'm gonna leave it in the chat right now for everyone. So this one, it can be it's accessible for anyone. And it has been like quite a while, like perhaps like 10 years since we launched this manual. So currently we are updating it, and that will also include the methodologies in determining carbon stock. And then when you ask about whether we can actually, if I understood correctly, right, if we can actually improve the our estimation of carbon stock beyond LOI method, is that correct? Yeah, so with this, there's always so we actually discuss this quite often, right? And sometimes when it comes to methods, it's really about weighing the pros and cons of the accuracy and the accessibility of the methods. I think at the moment where we feel relatively comfortable still with the LOI method is that because like this, for example, in my country, in Thailand, it can be done, right? All you need is like an oven. And at the moment, if we look at the data availability within our regions, it is still, I think it is still important that we prioritize the methodologies that allow countries to actually get as much as possible, get as many data points as possible. But then again, in some countries, for example, now you're in JCU, then I guess in the countries where this is already relatively established, then you can move forward to a bit more advanced methodologies. And for the third question is about double counting. Is it about allochthonous carbon?
Yeah, it's more about the regression equations that we will use derived from percentage of organic carbon stock into the carbon stock itself in usually megagrams per hectare, Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay, let me ask again to see if I understood correctly. Okay, is it because the seagrass in the seagrass meadow, not most, like a significant percentage of the carbon stock actually comes from somewhere else? Is
Yeah.
that what you
Yes.
mean? Okay. Okay, great. You actually asked really good question because allochthonous carbon is actually really painful subject for a lot of us. So I understood that, like, for example, right now for established international carbon standard like Verra, for example, this you actually need to deduct allochthonous carbon from the credits, right, that you're going to get. Or if you're evaluating your carbon benefit, this needs to be like determined. But to be honest, that can be subject to debate, to be honest, because if the seagrass meadows are not there, this carbon will not be trapped there. And at the moment, we are also working on it. So this is also in the list of the research that we are actually carry out at the moment with the science working group. And what is the first question?
Oh, it's about the
Sorry.
standard. Yes, no worries. It's about the standard about the what's it called the seagrass assessment, because we usually use for 1 meter depth, like in the future, like extend it more towards the more than 1 meter, or we just standardize around 1 meter. Thank you.
Okay. In fact, I think for seagrass, 1 meter is actually quite a reach already, because if you're working in seagrass meadow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many times to get a core of a 1 meter, it's actually very difficult, right?
Yeah.
And most of the time, getting 1 meter data is by extrapolation. So actually in this new carbon stock paper, it will also be like in the data set at the back, you will also see that we also report like whether it's from like 30 centimeters cores, and we see more and more that actually quite a significant number of the cores are not from 1 meters. So to be honest, I think this would be something that we should actually discuss further, because this the methodology on seagrass, right, is we cannot deny that part of it is actually derived from the mangrove methodologies, where 1 meter of core is definitely possible. Even longer than 1 meter is definitely possible, and this is like not really comparable. So if you ask me, I think we should not go further than 1 meter, that's for sure. So we can stick with 1 meter only if extrapolation is not creating too much uncertainty.
All right.
I
thank
hope I answer your question.
Thank you very much. That all answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you also, Zaki, for giving the question. And yeah, and I think that's also a good thing, a good takeaway as well, right? Because I think now people need to know that the standard is now not exceed like 1 meter, as you mentioned before. So it's also good information for everyone. And I think that's also related to the question that already in the chat box now, if you can see that I think Nurfianta is asking the question about the first is the how actually to calculate the carbon stock and sequestration in seagrass. Is it similar with the terrestrial methodology? And the other one is also about the bathymetry. So yeah.
Thank you for the question again, and thank you for your interest. The laziest answer would be to read the Blue Carbon manual for the first question, but yeah, but I can actually give you an overview of an answer. Okay, so your question is like in terrestrial ecosystem, you consider both the plant dimension itself and also the soil dimension, right? And whether it's the same for seagrass carbon stock. The answer is yes, it is the same. So we will consider both the biomass components and also the sediment components. Then But if you look at the data that has been established in research currently in the existing literature, then you will actually start to see that the trend of the stock within the biomass and the carbon stock within the sediment within the seagrass meadow is actually quite strikingly different. So a large majority of the carbon are actually within the sediment in the seagrass meadow, as compared to, for example, mangrove, which is a bit more similar to the forest ecosystem, right? Within mangroves, actually, the proportion is more like 40 within the biomass and 60 within the soil. So as we try to keep our research as accurate as possible, we should still include both the sediment and the biomass component, but knowing that the sediment is actually the largest carbon sink in the seagrass ecosystem. And for the remote sensing, I really have to say that to actually give the whole explanation on this will be another presentation. So I would suggest you to go back to the slide. And we actually have a really, really good set of materials on YouTube. Actually, the first one will be the general information of blue carbon ecosystem by CT, which actually will lay a really good ground for that. And the second one, then there will be a dive into like how to utilize all these techniques into mapping, not only seagrass, actually mangrove and salt marshes as well. So I can help you put the link down here in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Nok. Maybe also not just follow up the question of your first answer. So let's say if the researcher in here or the student, when they want to calculate the seagrass stock, let's say, will it be okay if they only take the sediment and not taking the biomass that you mentioned, or they need to do both? Or what's best?
Yani, you're asking a very difficult question and you put me into a difficult situation. If it's I still think that it is best to have both, because in many cases, by having some sort of measurements of the biomass, the density, for example, of seagrass, the species composition, those can be useful later for you, because I know that these days there has been some efforts trying to link between the biological parameters and the carbon sink. I think Pak Novi can probably like jump in on this, because I know you have actually a study and publications on this aspect as well.
Yeah, so
please.
thank you, Nok. So sorry, was it about the remote sensing thing?
No, it's about your seagrass carbon calculator paper that you also include like all the biological parameters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a work that we did together with our colleagues from LIPI at the time. So basically, actually there were two works that I have done on this. First with LIPI that I just mentioned. So basically, this is like more like a carbon matrix, how to predict carbon stock, above ground carbon stock, above and below ground biomass carbon stock from ecological parameters like seagrass density and seagrass cover and seagrass biomass. So the main motivation was to avoid the destructive method, because if we want to measure the carbon parameters directly, we will need to harvest the biomass every time we go to the field, and then we try to collect some ecological parameters like percent cover, seagrass density and also biomass, and then relate those parameters with seagrass carbon, below ground and above ground biomass. And then we came up with several what's called as like the correlations formula. How if we only have person cover data, then we have one formula for that. And then how if we have, like, for example, two parameters, person cover and density, we have also a formula for that. And then how if we have three parameters, biomass, person cover and density, to predict the seagrass carbon. That was the first work. And then the second work was mostly more financial. How seagrass carbon project is sufficient financially, or it was how seagrass project was worth to be funded, something like that. And it was more like financial calculations compared to the previous one that I worked, more carbon metric. Thank you.
Thank you, Panel
Thank
C.
you.
And also, thank you, Nok. Yeah, I think from that one, I think it's better if we take both of the sediment and also the biomass, and then we can see the value of that when you are doing your research or calculation. We still have time. If anyone wanna ask a question, still you can put it on the chat box or raising your hand. If it is not, I actually wanna ask a question. Yeah.
In fact, I also would like to invite discussions. So it doesn't always have to be
Yeah.
questions, right?
Questions.
So yeah, so if you have something to share, yeah, I would really love to hear that.
Yeah, actually, that's from me now. Maybe also from everyone, because you mentioned in your presentation that Indonesia is one of the core of the project that I currently working now with Cambodia, let's say. So what actually makes Indonesia different than the other countries? So India and IBCI decide to work more in Indonesia, because I believe the other Asia Pacific country, they also have lots of seagrass. So, but what's the main specialty, let's say, for Indonesia? So you choose that within IBCI.
Yeah. I think there are two main reasons. I think one is that you are one of the greatest blue carbon country in the world, right? So you actually, within Indonesia, there's probably one of the largest within the region, or perhaps like 1/3 in the world, both mangroves and seagrasses. So you actually have you sort of hold the switch, you know? So if there's any effective action going on in Indonesia, then that will create like immense impact in the world. Second is actually Indonesia has quite high technical capacity within countries. If you look at publications on blue carbon and seagrass from this region, actually, one of the top countries is actually Indonesia, which means that you have large areas of blue carbon habitats, and actually you have like human capacity, technical capacity to carry on the blue carbon actions. So that's why we actually see Indonesia as like one of our focus countries. Not to put so much pressure.
Okay, thank you, No. Maybe I want to also invite, because I see in this session we also have a young research and also student. Maybe if they have something to discuss with Nog about, let's say, what kind of the seagrass training that relate to their project, that's also really welcome. And also maybe Nog, because as we saw that maybe you have something like advices to the young research in here and also the young scientists who want to get involved in blue carbon, because I know that blue carbon is really big for now. There are lots of people talking about blue carbon, but if you can give advice to the young research or the young student, what it will be?
Okay. So for the young students, I think right now blue carbon is, I think the word blue carbon, right? Just because it has carbon in it, it has captured a lot of interest from not only the scientific world, but also business and finance, because now it is something that people see as investable. But I guess everyone here who are interested in blue carbon ecosystems are probably here because they really like to be in the seagrass meadows, or they really like to be in a mangrove forest. And I think if you love that, then you really have a way forward. You can leverage on the blue carbon interest at the moment by taking this opportunity to show people that there are other benefits, like core benefits, essential benefits of blue carbon ecosystems beyond carbon. Whether you're interested in, I don't know, animal associated in seagrass meadows, or if you're interested in physiology like me. So all those like pieces of knowledge can actually come together. And at the end of the day, we can like combine all these knowledges matter, and then it can help drive the conservation and restoration of blue carbon ecosystems. And at the end of the day, you then can secure the climate mitigation capacity. So my advice is that if you're interested in blue carbon ecosystem, you don't have to fall into the carbon like bucket. Yeah, your research can actually contribute it to this bucket from all kinds of angles.
Okay, so it's more into, let's say, they want to focus on biodiversity, but also give benefit for the seagrass ecosystem, right?
Mm.
How the connectivity between ecosystem in the ocean. So that's also a good thing, I guess, for all of the students in here that join if they want to explore more. And let's open another session of the question. If you still have the question, if you want to discuss something with 𝗏, you can type it on the chat box, or you can raise your hand. If it is still okay, Panofi, you're raising your hand again.
Yeah, thank you. Probably just like more general questions to not very technical. I found that recently that Indonesian people or agencies, government institutions, NGOs, and coastal community, etc., they are very interested in selling blue carbon or making money from blue carbon. Yeah.
Mm.
And how about this trend in Thailand or probably in Singapore, if you know? Is there any is there similar trend that people wants to make money from blue carbon in Thailand or probably Singapore?
Okay, since Singapore has very tiny blue carbon areas, so I think this one is probably, there are a lot of interest, but it's not feasible because we don't have enough blue carbon areas. But I can give comments about Thailand. Yes, there's like huge interest in making money from blue carbon ecosystems, both in mangroves and seagrass. But I guess most of the time in this talk, I don't want to talk too much about like the challenges and barriers in implementing blue carbon projects, because there's a lot of young students. But in fact, I mean, many people do not realize that to actually get money, even a bit of money from blue carbon crediting project is actually very difficult, right?
Yes, yes.
First thing first, you have to have like a successful project, which in itself alone is already very difficult. And that project has to have a cost of project that allow it to happen while still making some profit from selling it. And on top of that, to actually put this into the carbon crediting market, and this one is like in general, right? Because I know Indonesia will have its own methodology very soon. But in general, then you still have to actually have your project verified by a certain standard. And then these verifying protocols is actually entail a lot of different works, which then also come with cost. So in fact, for people who are really thinking of like earning money from running carbon credit projects, it is going to be very, very difficult. I think nowadays we should look at blue carbon projects as a way to actually preserve the blue carbon ecosystem services, which in fact, if we actually put a value to that, right, like livelihood or coastal protection, for example, all this is actually can turn into like very, very high cost if we lost all these blue carbon ecosystems. So yeah, I think we're actually facing very similar problem. And in fact, in Thailand, there's also additional problem. I think the jurisdiction, like who owns the land, who gets to say yes if if this area can be sold, is not clear at all. So in fact, maybe it's a blessing, so that all those projects cannot start because it gets stuck. Like we cannot figure out the right. So actually there's a high appetite, but implementation is almost zero, like very, very low. Yeah.
Thank you, No. Thank you.
But Nofit, continuing this discussion, because Nok also mentioned that there's also another kind of problem, like land, which own the land and so on. Is it also the same thing in Indonesia, Pak Novi, when we talk about the blue carbon that Nok mentioned? Maybe just to also give the overview about how the blue carbon managed in Indonesia, right?
Yeah, I think it's the similar issues. We have similar issues, as Nok mentioned, and I think actually Nok might have more information, and I'm pretty sure that the issues are similar to Indonesia, because in addition to the technical difficulty in measuring, in the scientific methods and technical measurement, etc. We need to prepare many things, like the body or agency standardizing this project, and we still don't have that for like a standard and verification body for validating and verifying blue carbon project, for example. And we still need to have like for example, this tenurial problem, as Nok mentions, who owns the benefit sharings of these carbon projects. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I think to some extent we have done several successful things in going that way, but we still need to work more on that, Mbak Yani. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pak Novi. So it's actually that we still have lots of homework that need to be done. And I think that's also a blessing, because we're having the young researcher and also young scientists that join us in here. So maybe there's some idea to boost the research in Indonesia, hopefully. And I think we don't have any question. Let me check to the chat box. There's no more question. And before we
I think there's one question like from a student asking about opportunities to be involved in blue carbon projects.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
So currently, I think like in the scheme of internship for IBCI, right now our scope is still within the students base in Singapore. But I think for KI, you probably can explore these opportunities with Yani or Susan. Do you want to respond to this, Yani?
Yeah, so starting last year, KI opened the internship program. We are actually having Hastik before as our intern and now become a consultant in KI. But I think you can explore more in the KI website because we gradually update it if there is a internship open for the young research or recent graduate. So just keep an eye on the KI social media and website. I will post it there. Okay, so I think Nok, thank you so much for coming and then to present about the IBCI and connecting with Indonesia. And before we are officially close to this session, let me quickly summarize. I actually have 4 points in here that will be as a takeaway. So I think the first one is that making the seagrass data is available and accessible is really important. And also the main challenge that for the seagrass is the seagrass extent, the carbon stock, the sequestration, emission factor. And currently several initiatives has been conducted and ongoing in IBCI, such as the collaboration with NASA and also the seagrass networking, and also in Indonesia, several initiatives also actually collaborate with the IBCI for the Indonesia seagrass scientist network, and also Indonesia will launch the mapping on September. And lastly, above all of that thing, I think the main important thing that we need to highlight is collaboration. So how essential collaboration is to leverage the Blue Carbon initiative to protect, to restore, and to conserve, not only from the technical perspective, but also from the policy and the community and everything. So I think that's a takeaway. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining for the 5th session. Please keep updated because we will have a 6th session in the coming months. Also, still in the end of the month or the beginning of the month. Please just look in the Seagrass Voice Instagram or the Konservasi Indonesia Instagram, and then we will keep you updated there. And last, don't forget to fill the attendance because we'll send you the certificate after this. Once again, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Nok, Bu Siti, Pak Novi, and everyone that coming. Have a nice afternoon and see you next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Nok. Thank you, Yani. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.